Something terrifying happened at my mother's house today. I need help. The trip to my mom's house is a short one, 10 minutes drive at most. And when I'm with my son Cooper, it's always a happy one. He loves visiting his grandma, as most 6-year-olds do, and is essentially a bundle of excited energy for the whole drive. His grandma always has yummy snacks or small gifts for him, as well as all the cuddles a 6-year-old would expect from their grandma. Then there was Bulldozer, the big 10-year-old Labrador that was as much a part of the family as any of us humans. Bulldozer loved Cooper and had been gentle with him since he was born, despite his well-earned name, which he got due to his penchant for demolishing things and plowing through anything in his path. Even when Cooper was smaller, Bulldozer would bound up to him, but stop short and gently nuzzle him, tail wagging furiously, rather than jump on him. Anyway, that brings us to yesterday. It was unusual because Cooper wasn't excited. He was withdrawn and had sunken into the passenger seat as if wanting to disappear. "What's wrong, Coop?" I asked gently. "Nothing. Do we have to go to Grandma's?" came his flat response. "Well, yeah, she's expecting us. I'm guessing she's got some shortbread for you, too," I said in an effort to pick his spirits up. My mom had made him shortbread the week before, and he'd loved it so much he'd asked about it several times since. Of course, I relayed this information and knew there would be a batch fresh out of the oven waiting for us. I looked over at him as we stopped at some traffic lights, and he was staring down at his hands, fidgeting nervously. "Dad, I feel funny. I want to go home," he told me in a very small voice. "We're nearly there," I insisted. "You'll be okay, mate." We got out of the car and Cooper took my hand, which he hadn't done for a very long time, as we made our way up the stairs to the front door. As I was fumbling with my keys to find the right one, Bulldozer caught sight of us through the glass paneling beside the door. "Hey there, Bull." He turned on his heels and ran to the glass, eyes full of murderous intent, growling, barking, his back right up. He hit the glass with force and continued growling with bared teeth. This was strange. Bulldozer had never been that way with anyone in the family. It was an overcast day, though, and he was getting old and losing his eyesight, so maybe he thought we were strangers, I reasoned. I knocked and called out for my mom, but got no response. I decided to go in and lock Bulldozer away in one of the bedrooms before I let Cooper come in. I was sure Bulldozer would calm down once he realized it was me. I finally found the key, opened the door, and entered slowly. Bulldozer looked into my eyes and growled a low, deep growl that gave me an awful chill. "Bully, what's gotten into you, big fella? It's me, Cal." I extended my arm down to offer the back of my hand for him to sniff, which he did, but his back was still up and his tail was tucked beneath him. Something was very wrong. I just didn't know what. I glanced at Cooper outside and he looked terrified. "Mom, where are you?" Nothing. I thought my best option was to grab Bulldozer by the scruff of his neck and get him locked into a bedroom. As if sensing this, he lunged at me and got his teeth into my wrist. It all happened in a matter of seconds, but I slapped him across the nose with my other hand and he released my wrist. I grabbed the back of his neck with both hands so he couldn't get at me again, and I literally threw him into the spare bedroom before slamming the door behind me. Panicking now, I ran to the door to let Cooper in as Bulldozer barked and clawed at the bedroom door behind me. Blood was gushing from my wrist, so I grabbed a tea towel from the kitchen and wrapped it up as best I could. Cooper was in tears now and held on to me by the back of my t-shirt. "It's okay, mate. It's just a scratch," I lied. "Grandma must be asleep, or maybe she's got her headphones in. Let's go and find her," I told him in the calmest voice I could manage. Cooper had his teary eyes shut tight and was whispering to himself, No. I was genuinely scared now. This whole situation was so far from normal that I didn't even know what was going to come next. I could see the gentle flickering light of the television coming from the living room as I approached, with Cooper still holding onto my t-shirt behind me, still whispering to himself. Relief flooded over me when I saw Mom in her chair, headphones in, knitting needles in hand, staring intently at the television. It wasn't like her to forget a visit from us, but she wasn't getting any younger, I suppose. "Hey, Mom! Mom!" I waved my arms about as I approached. Finally, her eyes found mine, but they weren't the warm, loving eyes I was used to seeing. They were cold, almost lifeless. My gaze was drawn downwards, though, as light reflected off of her knitting needles. Mom had just driven one of her needles clean through her hand, which by the looks of it was the 5th or 6th time she'd done it. The gray wool looped in and out of her small blood-soaked hand. Her lap was also soaked in blood. "Jesus fuck! Mom, what have you done?" I fought the urge to vomit and told Cooper to go back to the kitchen. He did so without any hesitation. I took my phone from my pocket and dialed 000. "Mom, I'm calling an Jesus, no, Mom!" I lunged at her to grab the needle she was beginning to drive through her hand again. That's when she started to cackle. It was an awful sound, deep, raspy, and menacing. I'd never heard her or anybody else make a sound that terrifying. Never. The ambulance arrived soon after, and so did my brother Tom and his wife Carmen, who I'd called straight after I'd finished with the ambulance dispatcher. They were as shaken up as me. Carmen drove Cooper back to my house where my wife Eve was anxiously waiting. Tom and I took my car and followed the ambulance. Later at the hospital, we were informed that Mom would most likely need surgery on her hand, though they weren't completely sure of the extent of the damage yet. She would also be closely monitored during her hospital stay and require a mental health clearance before she could return home, due to the manner in which she received her injuries. Tom and I reluctantly headed to my car later that night as Mom had been sedated and there was nothing more we could do. After I dropped Tom home and finally climbed into bed with Eve, it was nearly 2 a.m. She must have just fallen asleep, as she had rung me before I left the hospital to check what was happening. I picked up the baby monitor. Yes, Cooper is 6 and there is no need for a monitor. Call me soft, but I like to hear him breathing and my wife beside me breathing as I go to sleep. It calms me. And heard Cooper's steady breathing. And something else. What the fuck? There was not just my son's breathing. "Eve, wake up!" I shouted, and ran down the hall to Cooper's room, flung the door open, and switched on the light. Cooper didn't wake up. He'd always been a heavy sleeper. Below him, on the ground, was Bulldozer, who looked up at me happily, tail wagging. "Babe, did you bring Bully with you after what he did to your arm?" Eve asked, looking confused. "No! How the hell did he get in here?" I said in disbelief. I rang Tom straight away. He picked up on the second ring. "Everything okay, Mick?" I cut him off and practically shouted, "Did Carmen bring Bully over here tonight?" "Fuck, Bully? I don't think so. Why?" "Ask her, please." I could hear Carmen in the background reply that she hadn't been back to the house since she took Cooper away hours earlier. I put the phone down. Nothing was making sense. Bulldozer was locked in a bedroom and had tried to rip my arm off earlier. How was he in my son's room and seemingly back to his old self? We're in a second-story apartment with a security entrance. How the fuck did he get in? It's 6 a.m. now as I write this. I haven't slept. I need some answers. Did Cooper know something was going to happen at my mom's house? He's never acted that way before. Intuition? What the hell had gotten into Bulldozer? Why would he attack me like that? Or was he trying to warn us, to protect us from whatever the fuck was happening to Mom? What could possibly cause my mom to drive a knitting needle through her hand repeatedly? And of course, how is Bulldozer now in Cooper's room? And is he there to protect him? If so, from what? Nothing is making sense to me. I feel sick, and I have a bad feeling that this isn't the end of these strange events. Please, help. Edit. Just a quick update. Sorry for the delay. Things have been a bit crazy, as you can imagine. Mom is recovering from her operation and will get full usage back in her hand eventually. She has not yet been assessed to see whether she can return home. Tom and I spoke to her, and she says she doesn't remember any of the day of the events. None of it, not even waking up. She's quite shaken up, obviously. Coop is doing well. I've asked him why he felt funny about going to Grandma's that day, and he can't quite explain it, though what he describes, I think, is a feeling of dread. Hard to explain, especially for a 6-year-old. Bully is the old bully, big, boisterous, and happy. He insists on licking the bandages that cover the wound he gave me at least 3 times a day.